Hello my friends, and welcome to this next video in this series where we shall be looking at the ternary operator in JavaScript. The ternary operator is also known as the conditional operator, and it is a shorthand way of writing the if-else statement in JavaScript. The ternary operator can also be used to assign a value to a variable, and it can also be used to execute a piece of code, all based on a condition. This is the syntax of the ternary operator. You have a condition and then a question mark. So if this condition evaluates to true, then a piece of code is executed. This is the first piece of code. But if this condition evaluates to false, then the second piece of code is executed. And the first piece of code and the second piece of code are separated by this colon right here. This right here is just the basics of how the ternary operator works in JavaScript. Right now, let's go to our VS Code and see how we can actually put it in code and see how the ternary operator works. This on the left is my VS Code and on the right is my web browser. So let's start to understand how the ternary operator works. First of all, I'm going to give a condition which will either evaluate to a true or a false. So I can say something like 2 less than 4. So, and we know that this will either evaluate to a true or a false. So this is my condition. And then after this, I'm going to give a question mark. So we're saying if this is true, then let the first piece of code get executed. And what is that first piece of code? I'm going to say something like alert first. But then if this evaluates to a false, then we're going to execute the second piece of code. So I'm going to give the colon like this, and I'm going to say alert second like this. Very simple, right? And you can see as soon as I save, we're already having something on our web browser, an alert that says first. And that means that 2 less than 4 right here evaluated to a true, in which case this first piece of code got executed. But what if we had said something like 2 greater than 4 instead? We know that this right here will evaluate to a false, right? So we expect that this one should be giving us an alert on the web browser. So let me save, and then you can see that we have second on the web browser. At this point, we're not able to see everything on our VS Code all at once, and that's because my VS Code window is minimized. But in order to see everything all at once, I'm going to go under the view of my VS Code and then click on word wrap. So this is word wrap right here. I'm going to click, and if you're using a Mac, you can easily click on option and then press Z, as you can see right here on your keyboard. So once you do that, then you see that everything comes on the other line, so we can see everything at once. On Windows, you can easily go to the view and then click on word wrap. All right, great. So now we see how the ternary operator works. Now, how do we use the ternary operator to actually assign a value to a variable? Well, this is what we can do. First of all, I'm going to take this one off. So I'm going to say let name1 equals, and then I'm going to give a condition right here that says 3 greater than 5. And then I'm going to use the question mark, and then I'm going to say if this evaluates to true, then let's have this value. So I'm going to say something like Dominic. So what's going to happen here is if 3 greater than 5 evaluates to true, then name1 becomes Dominic. But what if 3 greater than 5 is not true? So I'm going to use the colon, and then I'm going to say Ebere. So what we're doing here is that if 3 greater than 5 evaluates to true, then Dominic becomes the value of name1. If 3 greater than 5 is false, then Ebere becomes the value of name1. So what I'm going to do now is now say alerts. I'm going to give alert and then name1 right here. So let me save. So as soon as I save, you see that on the web browser we have Ebere as an alert right here. And that's because 3 greater than 5 is false, obviously. So this is how we can use the ternary operator. And just like we can use the ternary operator to assign a value to a variable, we are not limited to just assigning value, a simple value such as string right here, to a variable, we can also assign a function to a variable using this ternary operator. And this is very useful if you're going to work with JavaScript-based libraries like React. And it is a very common thing to do in JavaScript libraries like React. So how does it work? I'm going to take everything out of here. So I'm going to say something like let fonts equals and then 3 greater than 5. So if 3 greater than 5 is true, then I want this first piece of code to be executed. And what's that piece of code that I want to get executed? I want to have a function right here. In this case, a fat arrow function. Okay. And then I'm going to say alert first code executed. So this is what I'm doing here. If this condition evaluates to true, then we'll have a function right here that just gives an alert. And in fact, maybe I should bring it on the next line like this. Okay. So we have this whole function to be executed if 3 greater than 5 becomes true. Else, if 3 greater than 5 is false, then I want another function to be executed instead, right? So for this function, in fact, let me bring it to the next line so it becomes clearer. So I'm going to say something like alert, and then I'm going to say second code executed. All right, and I'm going to save this. Okay, so first of all, let's look at this code. We have a funct variable that we want to hold a function, right? We want this funct variable to hold a function. And what function is it going to hold? Is it going to hold this one or is it going to hold this one? That depends on 3 greater than 5. So if 3 greater than 5 is true, then the first function right here becomes the value of this funct variable. But if 3 greater than 5 is false, then the second function right here becomes the value of this funct variable. Okay, so after that, remember this funct will hold a function. So what we can do is just come right here and then we can just call the funct like this. So we're going to call this function. All right, so as soon as I save, we'll see that we'll get an alert on the web page right here. So let me save, and then you can see we'll get second code executed. And let me close this. And that means this one was executed, right? Or this one was stored inside of the funct one, which means that 3 greater than 5 was false. But let's say we have 3 greater than 1 instead. And of course, 3 greater than 1 is true, right? So we want this one to be the value of the funct variable. So as soon as I save, now we have first code executed like this. So this is how we can use the ternary operator in JavaScript to actually assign a value to a variable, or we can even assign a function as a value to a given variable. So that's it, my friend, and I'm going to see you in the next video.